In the unforgiving Wild West, one cowboy's simple act of mercy bound him to a fate he never imagined. He saved her life, and her people claimed him forever. This story proves one choice can change everything. Like this video if courage matters, and subscribe for more powerful frontier stories from the 1800s. Let's get started. In the harsh deserts of 1879 Arizona, the sun burned without mercy, turning the land into a vast stretch of dust, stone, and silence. Naya lay trapped beneath the weight of her fallen horse near a jagged ravine, her body pressed painfully against the rocky ground. Each breath scraped her chest like fire. The caravan she had traveled with was gone, scattered by bandits who had struck swiftly and without mercy. Their laughter still echoed in her mind, sharper than the pain in her leg. She stared at the endless sky above her, wondering if this was where her journey would end, unnamed and forgotten, beneath the desert sun. Time moved strangely as she lay there. Minutes felt like hours, and the heat made her thoughts blur. Her lips cracked, her throat burned, and her strength faded with every shallow breath. She tried to call out, but her voice was weak, swallowed by the vast emptiness around her. Naya had been taught from childhood to endure pain and hardship, yet fear crept in quietly. Not fear of death alone, but fear of dying unseen, with no one to carry her story forward. The desert had claimed many before her, and she feared she would soon become just another memory lost to the sand. As the sun began to lower, long shadows stretched across the ravine, offering little relief from the heat. Naya's thoughts drifted to her people. Faces, voices, songs carried on the wind. She wondered if they were searching for her, or if they believed her already gone. The weight of the horse pressed harder as her strength failed and her vision dimmed. She closed her eyes briefly, surrendering to exhaustion, unsure if she would have the strength to open them again. The sound of hooves broke the silence like a distant drumbeat. At first, Naya thought it was another trick of her fading mind. But the sound grew clearer, steady, and real. She forced her eyes open and turned her head slightly. Against the glow of the setting sun, a lone rider appeared, moving carefully across the rough terrain. Hope flickered weakly in her chest, fragile as a candle in the wind. She did not know if the rider would help her or harm her, but the presence of another human alone felt like a miracle. William Hart had been traveling between ranches, following cattle trails and old wagon paths. He noticed signs that didn't belong: broken branches, disturbed sand, dark stains on the ground. Experience told him something was wrong. He slowed his horse, scanning the land with a careful eye, until he spotted the ravine and the still shape beside it. His heart tightened as he dismounted and approached, boots crunching against stone. When he saw Naya pinned beneath the horse, injured and barely conscious, he didn't hesitate. William worked quickly but carefully, knowing one wrong move could make things worse. He spoke softly, not knowing if she understood his words, but hoping his voice alone might bring comfort. Using all his strength, he shifted the horse just enough to free her leg, gritting his teeth against the strain. Naya cried out softly as the weight lifted, pain rushing through her body, but relief followed close behind. William steadied her, keeping her from slipping back onto the rocks. He tore strips from his shirt, hands steady as he pressed the cloth against her wounds to stop the bleeding. He offered her water, tilting the canteen gently so she could drink without choking. His movements were calm, practiced, and respectful. He did not ask questions. He did not demand explanations. In that moment, none of it mattered. There was only an injured woman and the simple choice to help her survive. Naya watched him through half-lidded eyes, confusion mixing with disbelief. She had been taught to be cautious, to expect cruelty from strangers, especially in times like these. Yet William's actions carried no threat, no hidden demand. His eyes showed concern, not judgment. Slowly, the tight grip of fear loosened in her chest. She allowed herself to rest against the rock as he worked, trusting him in a way she had not expected she ever could. The desert grew quieter as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. William stayed close, shielding Naya from the cooling evening wind with his own coat. He checked her injuries again, making sure the bleeding had slowed, watching her breathing carefully. He knew they couldn't stay long. Night brought its own dangers, but he also knew rushing her could cause more harm. Every decision had to be measured, thoughtful, and careful. As strength slowly returned to her limbs, Naya became more aware of her surroundings. She noticed the way William positioned himself slightly to the side, never looming over her. She noticed how he waited for her to nod before helping her sit up, how he listened when she spoke softly in her own language, even though he didn't understand the words. Respect flowed naturally from him, unforced and genuine. It reminded her of the teachings of her elders, that a person's true nature revealed itself in moments of crisis. When she was finally able to sit upright, supported by a rock and William's steady presence, Naya looked at him more closely. Dust covered his clothes, and the lines on his face told of long days under the open sky. He was not a rich man, nor did he carry himself like someone seeking reward. He was simply a man who had seen suffering and chosen not to turn away. In that realization, something shifted inside her. The desert no longer felt quite as empty. The pain had not vanished, and the danger was not yet over, but hope had taken root where despair once lived. Naya understood that this moment, this single act of compassion, would ripple far beyond the ravine. She did not yet know how, but she felt it deeply. The spirits, she believed, had guided this man to her for a reason. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, William prepared to help her move to safer ground. He spoke gently, explaining his plan in simple words and gestures. Naya nodded, trusting him completely now. Together, they would leave the ravine behind. And though neither of them could see it yet, the choice William made that evening, without questions, without conditions, had set his life on a path that would bind him forever to her people, and to a destiny far greater than he had ever imagined. William guided Naya slowly toward higher ground, his arm steady beneath her shoulder as they moved away from the ravine. Every step was careful, measured against her pain and the uneven ground. The desert had cooled, but tension filled the air. William's senses stayed sharp, aware that helping her survive was only part of the danger. He had crossed into land where misunderstandings could turn deadly. Still, he kept going, because stopping was no longer an option. As they climbed, faint silhouettes appeared along the ridge ahead. Figures moved with purpose, silent and watchful. William stopped instinctively, his hand tightening slightly as his heart began to pound. He recognized the shape of Apache warriors immediately, their posture, their stillness, the way they blended with the land itself. He knew the stories told in towns, most of them rooted in fear and ignorance. For the first time, those stories felt very small and very distant. Naya sensed his hesitation and straightened despite her injury. She raised her hand and spoke firmly in her language, her voice carrying strength that surprised even herself. Her words cut through the stillness, clear and commanding. The figures paused. Then, one by one, their weapons lowered. William watched in disbelief as tension eased from the air, replaced by cautious recognition. Whatever Naya had said, it mattered deeply. The Apache leader stepped forward, his eyes sharp but thoughtful as he studied William. He did not rush. He observed everything, the way William stood protectively but not aggressively, the blood-stained cloth still tied around Naya's leg, the exhaustion written across both their faces. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, the leader spoke, his voice calm and measured. He acknowledged what William had done, not with praise, but with truth. "You could have left her," the leader said. "Many would have." William did not try to justify himself or seek approval. He answered simply, "I couldn't." There was no pride in his voice, only honesty. That answer carried more weight than any long explanation. The leader nodded once, slowly, as if something important had been confirmed. The journey back to the Apache camp was quiet. Warriors walked alongside them, watchful but not threatening. William remained alert, unsure of what awaited him, but no one treated him as an enemy. When they reached the settlement, Naya was taken gently by her people, surrounded by voices filled with relief and concern. William stepped back instinctively, ready to leave if asked. Instead, the leader motioned for him to stay. Food was offered, water was placed in his hands. A fire burned warmly against the cool desert night. William realized then how tense his body had been, how deeply he had expected rejection or punishment. None came. He was not questioned harshly or confined. He was welcomed, not with celebration, but with quiet acceptance. It unsettled him more than hostility ever could have. As the night deepened, Naya rested nearby, watched over by elders and healers. From time to time, she glanced toward William, her expression filled with gratitude that words could not fully express. She had spoken for him, stood for him, and in doing so had changed how her people saw him. William felt humbled by that realization. He had acted without thinking of reward, yet here he was, receiving something rare. In the days that followed, William remained with the Apache people longer than he expected. He had planned to leave at dawn, but each day brought another reason to stay. He helped where he could, repairing tools, assisting with animals, offering his skills without forcing his presence. No one ordered him, no one tested him. They simply watched. Trust, he learned, was not demanded. It was observed, slowly and carefully. The Apache leader spoke with him often, sharing stories of the land and listening to William's in return. There was no attempt to reshape him, no demand that he abandon who he was. Instead, there was mutual respect, built through quiet conversations and shared labor. William realized how little he truly understood about the people he had once only known through rumors. The frontier, he saw now, was not divided by good and evil, but by misunderstanding. Naya recovered steadily. When she was strong enough to walk, she approached William herself. She thanked him in simple words, but her eyes carried deeper meaning. She explained that by saving her life without expectation, he had honored her people in a way few outsiders ever had. Life, she told him, was sacred, and those who protected it earned a place among them, even if they were not born to it. William felt something shift inside him then. He had always lived between places, never fully belonging, always moving on. But here, for the first time, he felt seen for who he was rather than what he represented. He understood that trust, once given, was not easily withdrawn. It was a responsibility as much as an honor. When the time finally came for him to leave, the Apache leader stopped him. He placed a hand on William's shoulder, a gesture heavy with meaning. "You are welcome here," he said, "always." It was not a promise made lightly. It was an acknowledgement that William had crossed an invisible line, not as a conqueror or intruder, but as a man who had chosen compassion. William rode away that morning changed. The desert looked different now, not as an empty, hostile place, but as land filled with stories, people, and connections deeper than blood. He knew his life would never return to what it had been before. He had saved one woman from death, but in doing so he had been given something far greater. He had been claimed, not by force, but by trust.